the railway station of Basel SBB, where I arrived with a sleeper train from the Netherlands. This railway station is not just the biggest railway station in the third largest city of Switzerland, but it's also an important railway junction for both travelers to France and to Germany. In this video we'll discover the railway station, the trains along the route between Basel to Domodossola via Brig, and of course I'll show you the spectacular views from the train along this route. So join me on board of this Intercity from Basel in Switzerland to Domodossola in Italy. Domodossola is the final destination. You also find trains on this route. They will continue to Milan, and that are like these trains. I hope you like this video, or this is a helpful video to you. If so, please give me a thumbs up. If you have any questions, or even if you just want to say hello, leave a comment. And if you'd like to see more trip reports about more sustainable ways of transportation, mainly focusing cross-bordering or long distance, well, this is both. It's not a super long distance though, but it is a long distance. And hit the subscribe button. If you don't want to miss anything, also hit the bell icon. But for now, let's get this video on the track and let's roll the intro. The night before, I took a sleeper train from the Netherlands to Basel SBB. I did not make a trip report this time, but I covered this in one of my previous videos, and you can find that trip report in the description of this video. I arrived at Basel SBB rather early in the morning. At around 6:20 was the estimated arrival time, but I had a small delay, therefore I arrived about 30 minutes late. However, that's not a big problem, because I planned some extra time here before I take my next train that will take me to Domodossola in Italy. These were actually intercity trains that do terminate in Brig, but some of these trains do continue as inter-regional train further on to Domodossola. So instead of having two trains, it's just one train that will continue its way and will become an international train. What makes sense really. However, for the station review, where I will start off in this video, like I do basically in all my videos, let's go to the outside of the station and to the front. Over here you find a tram stop, and there are some bus stops a little bit more at the front, at the side. By the way, if you approach to Basel from Germany, Basel SBB, what is the main station, is the second station of the city of Basel. You will find basically two main railway stations, Basel SBB, what is the main station that I'm featuring in this video, and then there's also Basel Bad. Basel Bad is both a German and a Swiss fare point, what might be very interesting for if you want to book your tickets. This here is the concourse of Basel SBB. I'll go here in a bit, but first let me show you around over here. Because if you move to the side and I walk to the far end over here, I'll end up at the tracks for their trains to France, and then especially the regional trains to France. The connection for regional trains into France is rather good. There are every hour trains that continue to Strasbourg, and every 30 minutes you find trains to Mulhouse. Mulhouse is on its way to Strasbourg, so basically the trains to Strasbourg also go there. And for train geeks, in Mulhouse you'll find the French National Railway Museum. These local trains were being served with these old Corail coaches. I personally never traveled in one of them before, at least not in France, but I promise you this will change very soon. Because on the way back from Switzerland I traveled with a TGV Lyria from Geneva to Paris, what is a high-speed train, and from Paris I traveled with slow trains via Malbès and Charleroi to the Netherlands. Apart from these local trains to France, you also find the TGV Lyria high-speed trains. Most of the TGV Lyria high-speed trains that do call at Basel do run between Zurich and Paris. By the way, if you're traveling with the TGV Lyria trains within Switzerland, you don't need a reservation, you can just hop on these trains. This doesn't count in France though, so please keep this in mind. Near the tracks for these local trains, what are terminal tracks by the way, there are some vending machines and some timetables for these trains as well. And as you can see over here, custom formalities can theoretically also take place in this railway station, and especially for these tracks for the trains towards France. However, because both France and Switzerland are a part of the Schengen area, this probably won't happen that frequent. But theoretically, it is possible. Anyway, let's go back to the main concourse of this railway station. I haven't mentioned yet when I showed you the front of the railway station, but right at the front of the station there are so many hotels, you don't need to worry about that. And at several spots within the railway station there are some really nice paintings. And some of these paintings, like for example here the main concourse, do represent destinations where you can go to in Switzerland by train. Something else, at the middle of the main concourse you find the entrance to the toilets. It's not just toilets, but there are also showers over here. So if you want to fresh yourself a little bit up after a night in a sleeper train, for example what I did, you can do that here as well. Right next to the showers there are some lockers, as you can see over here, and if you move on over here you get to the bicycle grass. Well, I bet that if you watch this video and you want to know more about this railway station, you're not interested in how to park your bike over here. That's more interesting for local people. Obviously, in the main concourse there are lots of vending machines where you can buy train tickets and also clear displays that will host information about departing trains. And then there's also this ticket and information desk. In Switzerland, a ticket and information desk is just much more than just route information or to buy train tickets. You can also exchange money over here pretty often, and they sell railway related souvenirs, as you can see over here. Well, I don't have to explain that there are quite a lot of shops also at the lower level. But for now I think you have an impression about the lower level, so let's go up towards the platforms. Even though some platforms are accessible from this area of the railway station as well. A higher level will link all the platforms with each other. Here you find basically a bridge that will gain access to all the platforms, and there are quite a lot of shops over here as well. Well, I guess that's no surprise over here. Something I really like is over here you find a live screen where you can see the trams at the front of the railway station. So if you arrive here by train and you want to know if your tram is already there, or maybe your tram is just coming in so you need to run, or maybe not, you can see it over here. I think this is really cool and I like to see this in more countries and places. And even though the overground passage isn't that special, what I really like about here are the views on the railway tracks, as you can see over here. Within this single shot you can see already trains from different countries, by the way. This is really an international railway station. Information about departing trains is given very well throughout the railway station, and before you enter the platform this has also been marked crystal clear. And this here, this is my train. These trains are being pushed or pulled by a locomotive, and these are definitely not the newest Intercity trains you can find in Switzerland. These carriages do have a top speed of 200 km per hour, but I think that the maximum speed during my ride will be approximately 160 km per hour. It also makes a longer stop in Bern. Obviously, at the platform there are clear departure screens, and on these departure screens you can also see the train composition, so you know more or less what carriage will be where at the platform. These composition screens will refer to letters you can find at the platform, so you know more or less what carriage will be there. And of course, at the platform there are lots of information displays as well, with line maps and departure information, like old-fashioned timetable. Before we jump into the train, let's take a closer look at the exterior. Actually, I shot this part in Bern where the train made a longer stop. Lots of people traveled along this train to Bern, and in Bern this train waits for some other connections, and basically lots of people joined us again in Bern. At digital screens at the side of the train, route information, so the train number, stops along the way, final destination, but also the carriage number have been written. There is a dining car in these trains, and if there's something I truly love on trains, then it is a dining car. Although for my trip it was rather busy. At the side it has been clearly marked what class you're entering at the moment you're entering that carriage, and basic facilities like for example the family area or the accessible area have been marked as well. Although let it be no surprise that if you need a more accessible train you need to ask for assistance, because these are not easy accessible trains. The newer modern trains are way more accessible, and I think this is good because traveling should be easy for everybody. The train has a locomotive on one side, and at the other side of the train you find the control wagon. However, there was also a control wagon in the middle somewhere, so you couldn't walk entirely through the train. Anyway, For now, let's start off with the train review, and I'll start with the second class, even though I was traveling in first class for this journey. This was on a field trip that was organized by the Switzerland Tourism Board. I'm working as a travel agency, and they provided us a first class Swiss pass. And if you're traveling with a Swiss pass, but I'm not doing that frequent by the way, I'm really a big fan of Interrail, you can also travel with these trains into Domodossola. If you have a Switzerland only Interrail or Euro pass, that's not possible. Anyway, this here is the layout of the second class, and you find different kinds of carriages. Typically for Switzerland, most seats do face each other. Personally, I'm not a big fan of this, especially not when I'm traveling alone. But the comfort level is rather okay. It's not super impressive though, there are nicer trains in Switzerland, I can tell you that for sure. All over the train, both in the older but also in the newer carriages, you will find power sockets. There's no Wi-Fi available in these trains though. This here is a first class carriage at the other end of the train, but I'll show you the first class in a bit. Even though you won't find a table near the aisle seats in second class, and the newer carriages, you will find a table you can fold out that's located in the armrest, as you can see over here. Well, maybe you can point it out. If you want to travel with bikes on these trains, it is possible, but please do keep in mind that it's probably obligated to make a reservation. The rules are very different per Intercity route in Switzerland, so this might change in the near future as well. So please look this up on the website of the SBB, the Swiss Railway Company. When I was filming in Bern and lots of people there went out, lots of other people joined this train. In Switzerland you find really good connections for trains that wait for each other. So even though lots of people go out, the train waited here a bit longer and lots of other people joined. So I moved back to the first class section where I entered from at the moment I entered this train in Basel as well. What is right over here. And here it's still quiet. There are different kinds of first class carriages, some older and some newer carriages. In some of these carriages there were even special luggage racks within the compartments, but of course you can use the overhead luggage racks. And because Swiss trains do have seats that face each other, between the back ends of the seats you can also store quite a lot of luggage. You actually don't need special luggage racks within these trains. At the end of the compartments there are screens that will hold route information, and this is both in first and second class the case. And between the carriages there are some extra folding seats, as you can see over here, also both in first and second class. For now let's do a toilet review. And even though this is a first class toilet, believe me, the second class toilets are not that much different. However, there are different kinds of carriages on these trains, and this here is for example a much more modern carriage and also an accessible toilet. What is pretty common for accessible toilets within European trains is that these toilets can also be used as a diaper changing facility, as you can see over here. Or maybe if you take your desk seat, this might be a new office space for you. We're still traveling in the Alps, and between some of the carriages you'll find these ski holders. So if you have skis, you can let them lean over here. What's pretty comfortable. Also in one of the older carriages I noticed this here, and I think this used to be a phone booth back in the days. However, it's not being much used now anywhere more. I think the best example of how to use these spaces in a creative way is what you find on the high-speed trains in Taiwan. Something else you find between the carriages are line maps for trains in Switzerland. First class gives you more room, it's in a 2x1 layout instead of a 2x2 layout. The seats are more comfortable and you just have some more space. There's no extra service here. Something else you find in first class but won't find in the second class is a reading light. Even though I haven't done a proper seat tour, this is more or less a kind of first class seat tour. You'll find a table at the side you can fold out to make it slightly bigger, and there's one power socket per passenger. At this side there's a small table you can fold out, and this is actually quite sturdy. Although I can't imagine that it's nice to work from a laptop from none of these tables. My train that basically consisted of two parts, had 3 first class coaches, a dining car and then the second class coaches. The other part didn't have a dining car, and if there's something I really like, it's having a dining car on board of the train. And as you can see, I wasn't the only one who liked it. It was really busy over here, but it was really busy during the entire ride, to be honest. So therefore I couldn't film as much as I actually wanted to film for this trip report. As a matter of fact, it was so busy that just before the Luxembourg base tunnel, some people were kindly asked to leave the train, at least the people that did have the final destination, Brig. Especially for these super long tunnels in the Alps, there were a lot of safety regulations. And even though it's not obligated to make a reservation yet for these trains, there is a maximum amount of people that they are willing to carry due to the safety concerns. And I think it's important. I mean, traveling by train is statistically one of the safest ways of traveling within Europe, even safer than flying. Now we're talking about statistics anyway. Of course, trains are safer, but also way less polluting than any kind of other motorized transportation. This graph shows the environmental impact if you're traveling on the route between Basel in Switzerland and Domodossola in Italy by train, car and plane. By the way, the travel time by plane is way longer than traveling by car and by train. The car is slightly faster than traveling by train. However, if you compare the plane and the train with each other, the train is 99.95% less polluting than making the same journey by airplane. You can travel 295 times by train per passenger to have the same carbon footprint as traveling one time by plane. And the overall energy resources, so the amount of energy that are needed for trains, are less impressive when it comes to this. This has to do with the fact that trains do have different energy resources. What is in Switzerland 100% green sustainable electricity. And I really think that especially these short haul flights should be the first flights which should stop with operating. Because if the aviation industry is want to be less polluting, these are the flights they can cut easily. We don't have the technology to make aviation very green from one day to another, and still they have very ambitious goals. Until this moment, the aviation industry has not ever met one goal they set when it comes to sustainability. So taking sustainable flying serious? Well, I can't do that anymore. However, I do fully support every action we take to make this world a bit more sustainable, also when it comes to the aviation industry. And even though the aviation industry is becoming slightly more sustainable, they're announcing every single step like they are saving the world, while the opposite thing is happening. And I know there's a lot of criticism on focusing too much on individual carbon footprint savings. And this is fair enough, given that this takes away too much the focus of the fossil fuel industry who are fueling our climate crisis. However, a fact is, and especially when it comes to the aviation industry, the only way to reduce emissions is to reduce demand. Well, I stop talking about this topic for now and show you the views from the train between Basel in Switzerland and Domodossola in Italy, with stops in Bern, Spiez, Visp and Brig, what are all in Switzerland. that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did so, once again, give me a thumbs up on YouTube. And if you'd like to see more trip reports about more sustainable ways of transportation, mainly focusing on cross-borderings or international and or long distance travel, then hit that subscribe button. See you on the next video. Once again, thank you for watching. If you are interested in other trip reports, of course you can find them on this channel, and I try to upload weekly new trip reports. However, in the description of this video on YouTube, you also find a link to a map, and on this map you can find all trip reports. Of course, there will be more lines added to this map, so stay tuned if you want to see more.